What's up, everyone, and welcome into another exciting episode of Goal Line Dynasty. Last time, our first video back after our 5-6 month hiatus, Tyler and I were doing the first 4 rounds of a Superflex startup with rookie picks. And you know what? We figured today we're just going to pick up right where we left off. There's a lot of content out there on those first 4 rounds, but not a lot of content right now on those middle rounds. So we are going to cover rounds 5 through 8 with those exact same teams that we drafted in our last video. But before we begin the mock draft, Tyler, how we doing, buddy?
I'm good. It's going to be fun to round off these teams. I think we both, committed to directions with each one of these spots, and it's going to be fun to see how we can navigate. And the middle rounds are really where the draft is made, right? Where your team is going to either, find its way to the championship or, fall to the bottom. So the first 4 rounds are usually the easiest, and then this is where it gets tough. So this is the fun of it.
Yeah, and we have a handful of very different teams that we're going to be not completely finishing today, right? But rounds 5 through 8, this is like the meat and potatoes of everything, right? You got your studs at the top, and now this is where you can decide whether or not you will be a champion next season. So let's jump right on into it. So team 1 here, this one was one of the 2 controversial teams that I drafted, right? An older roster, Josh Allen, McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, obviously a little bit younger there with Kyren Williams. So I kind of mentioned it in our last video, what would I do if I was picking up where I'm leaving off with this team right here? And honestly, it might be a bit of a hot take, but I'm going to take Trey McBride here. I think Trey McBride offers the same kind of upside that we'd expect out of a guy like Mark Andrews, right, in 2024. But the difference is Trey McBride is about 5 years younger. His dynasty value is way on the rise. He's pretty much the consensus tight end 2 for a lot of people right now, only behind Sam Laporta. So I think he kind of fits the mold of what I'm going for with this team in 2024. But I'm finally, between him and Kyren Williams, I'm finally getting some long-term dynasty value. So I think this is kind of a good direction to take this team.
Yeah, he was the tight end 1 once Kyler got back. So, I love Trey McBride as much as anybody, who's obviously a great value this year. I love the way that he ended the season prior. And it's great that he picked up right where he left off even before Kyler got back. He was still, great. And he's definitely a flexible piece right now. And I think getting him around after Sam Laporta is pretty good value. And I'm glad that you took him there because with the Pat Mahomes team, I got to go get a running back, right? The way you built the Josh Allen team. Right now, as far as points go, I'm probably not keeping up with you yet. But I'm going to take Devon Achane, and hopefully that helps because he is obviously, immense upside. Anytime that he's healthy, anytime he gets 15 touches, he could go off for 70 yards with 2 or 3 of those touches. So immense week-to-week upside, pairing him with Pat Mahomes, and then a couple of pretty good wide receivers. I think I like where this team's headed.
Yeah, and Achane is definitely more of a risky asset just because of, between Raheem Mostert being there and Devon Achane being injury prone or quote unquote injury prone in 2023, right? But the sky's the limit for Achane, right? He's got to be right there with Kyren Williams in a lot of people's rankings. I know he's just behind Kyren Williams in my rankings as well. So a lot of upside to be had there. And dude, there was not many running backs that were outscoring Achane when he was actually healthy and getting a semi-full workload, right? Even when sharing the field with Raheem Mostert. So I think that's a good pick there. Gives you some youth, but also is consistent with, building that team to win in year 1. This this next one I know is one that you hate probably the most here. I know you hate how I drafted team 1, but I know you really hate how I drafted team 3 because I went so heavy on running backs. And it's time I want to go receiver. I really, really do. But for the same reason why I took Trey McBride on the other team, it's why I'm going to take Mark Andrews for this team. Yes, he is obviously older than Trey McBride, but he does have an immense amount of upside going into the 2024 season. Don't forget, Mark Andrews is, consistently over the last few years has been a top 2, top 3 dynasty tight end, and he's going to continue to return that same value. The reason why I went Trey McBride on that first team is because I don't love any of the receivers on the board at this point. That's the exact same reason why I went with Mark Andrews here. So really punted the receiver position on here. Chances are around 6, 7, and 8 is going to be wide receivers for this, but you can't sell me, Tank Dell, DK Metcalf. As much as I love T. Higgins, right? We don't know what he's going to be doing in 2024. I just cannot take any of these receivers in a 1-for-1 over Mark Andrews right now.
Yeah, I mean, and there is a chance that one season could have been like, his ceiling, that 150 targets, that probably is about where the max we're going to see. But I think that's the best positional advantage on the board. And when you make a bet on, Jalen Hurts, Breece Hall, and Jahmyr Gibbs, I actually love taking Mark Andrews there and don't blame you at all. Here with the CJ Stroud Puka, this team, everybody on this roster has been in the league for less than 2 years. So I'm going to go and take the 106 here. I think, like you were saying, this range of wide receivers is kind of flat. And I probably wouldn't take any of these receivers or, Kenny Walker, TJ Hawkinson. I don't see anybody on the board. Bryce Young, I would re-roll for the 106. I think there could be a guy that, slots in that creeps up into the next tier. You see there's a lot of hype on JJ McCarthy right now. You don't know, like, could Bo Nix or Michael Penix really, make a run? Brian Thomas Jr. is a guy that a lot of people love. I know right now it's like really Roma Dunze, Brock Bowers, but in my mind it's really not. I'm not investing this pick in a tight end in this spot, but I'm gonna like getting the flexibility and staying very young with this team.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense with this because, to your point, 106, right? You're only one spot away from landing Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Obviously, Caleb Williams, there's no world where he falls to 106. But if JJ McCarthy goes, top 10, top 15 in the draft, or if one of the other receivers goes way ahead of Odunze or something like that, 106 could end up being a steal, right? One of the consensus top 5 right now are the top 3 quarterbacks, Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison. One of them, this time in 2.5 months, could easily fall to 106. So that could be a really good value there, and I think it makes a lot of sense with that team structure that you have. Going back to my team here, Lamar Jackson, A.J. Brown, T-Law, Jonathan Taylor. I took Jonathan Taylor, right, pretty early on. So this is a team that I should want to compete right off the bat with, and I'm going to stick with that philosophy here. Now, unlike the last two, I do like TJ Hawkinson. I like TJ Hawkinson a lot, but he's coming off of a pretty big injury. We don't know what's going on with the quarterback situation in Minnesota. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is still there. Jordan Addison is there. If Kirk Cousins leaves, everyone in Minnesota takes a hit, and I think the biggest hit is going to be to TJ Hawkinson. So I can't give him the same argument that I make for Mark Andrews and Trey McBride. And, if I'm looking at the running back position, I like James Cook more than I like Kenny Walker, but I couldn't justify either of these running backs over the receivers that are currently here on the board. So I'm going to go for the guy that I think has, again, this team is risky, right? Starting off with the back-to-back of Lamar Jackson and A.J. Brown, I'm going for the high ceiling, knowing that I could get some bust weeks along the way. I'm going to stay consistent with that. I'm going to swing for the fences, and I am going to take my flyer on T. Higgins. I'm a massive T. Higgins fan, always have been, always will be. And if he stays in Cincinnati, great. We know his role. If he goes and signs somewhere else, he's going to be the highest paid offensive player or non-quarterback offensive player, I should say, on free agency this year. So he's going to be handed a wide receiver 1 workload somewhere. So I'm going to swing for the fence this week with T. Higgins there, and I'm fine to have him as my wide receiver 2 in the 5th round.
Yeah, you know how I feel about T. Higgins. I think, he'd go to a lot of different landing spots and be a very good, like a wide receiver 1 in a lot of different offenses. And even if he ends up somehow staying with Cincinnati, he's going to still be a productive wide receiver. I think with Joe Burrow there for a fully healthy season, as long as, T. Higgins also stays healthy. So I guess, there is that risk in that bet. But here with the Joe Burrow, this Joe Burrow 103 led team, I think Drake London is, kind of not the safest bet right now. I think obviously you know how I feel about Drake London. I love him. Took him in the 4th round, obviously. But I'm going to take Zay Flowers here, a guy who I thought actually you were probably going to take over T. Higgins. But I think, Zay has a high floor. I think that Lamar Jackson obviously being there with a long-term contract, I think they like Zay Flowers. I think, worst case scenario, he becomes, Marquise Brown, what Marquise Brown was. I think that Zay is still going to get a pretty good target share even when Mark Andrews is back and healthy, and, back to himself again rather than just what we saw in that one playoff game. So I'm going to take Zay and just try to give myself some more, flexibility and safety and longevity with this roster. And I think that Zay Flowers is going to be a pretty good producer for the team too. I think, like we said, this range of receiver is pretty flat, but I don't see any real running backs that are going to carry the same amount of value for the same amount of time as Zay Flowers is going to.
Yeah, Zay Flowers had a really strong rookie year. And I will say this too, man. The Zay Flowers effect in Baltimore is big. The last time Lamar Jackson threw for over 3,000 yards was 2019. He threw for just under 3,700 yards, and he did miss a game this year, right? And largely in part, now he was missing Mark Andrews for half the year. What's the big change? Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers is, even though he's not built like a true alpha wide receiver one, right? He's going to be the wide receiver one in Baltimore for the foreseeable future. And I think that could be for a good handful of years, right? So nothing wrong there with taking Zay Flowers. I could have easily gone with him over T. Higgins. I just kind of wanted to shoot for the moon a little bit, right? I think T. Higgins has a higher ceiling, but definitely a much lower floor than Zay Flowers there. Moving into Team 7 here, Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, Michael Pittman, and Nico Collins. I'm going to stick with another big receiver. You got Michael Pittman, you got Nico Collins, you got DK Metcalf. This is the biggest, most bruising, bully wide receiver group that you could possibly ask for. Not that that necessarily matters for fake football, but in real football, I mean, imagine going against all three of these guys at the same time. That'd be an absolute nightmare. But DK Metcalf, down year in 2023, largely in part because Seattle is crowded, right? Geno Smith took a step back, was still good, but he took a step back. They just drafted JSN. They still have Tyler Lockett, there is rumors that Tyler Lockett could be on the chopping block, which I think would be a mistake for Seattle personally. But if Tyler Lockett leaves, that's going to free up a lot of targets for DK Metcalf. He is a yearly, top 15 guy at worst, I would say. Even last year with his regression, he's still, wide receiver 21 overall. Not amazing, not terrible. Still had 119 targets, right? But still did see over 1,100 yards. So if anything changes in this offense, it's only going to be positive for DK Metcalf, in my opinion. So I'm fine with taking him as my wide receiver 3 before going after a guy like Kenny Walker or James Cook here.
Yeah, I think that's about what you should kind of expect him to be. Is that I in my mind, like DK Metcalf is kind of like a low end wide receiver too. That's where he finishes in terms of point per game. The last 3 years. DK Metcalf, I'm honestly someone I think I'm cashing out on the name value of in most spots, but I think in this draft he fell right to like pretty much where he should have. For Team 8, Jefferson, Love, Goff, Devonta Smith. I think I'm going to take Kenny Walker here because I think he is the bottom of the running backs that I feel like has a spot next year that I feel good about. Like James Cook, his rookie year, they didn't really rely on him. Granted, he was great last year. He could be replaceable or they could add to that offense, and I don't love his role. I don't think any of the guys really build. I don't feel great about many of them going forward in terms of age and production. So I'm gonna take Kenny Walker. I feel good about with the Jefferson and Love start. I think I'm gonna score a lot of points here.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. Zach Charbonnet proved to be largely a non-factor in his rookie year, right? And maybe things could change next year now that Pete Carroll's not the coach anymore, but I highly doubt the new coaching staff is going to come in and force a timeshare here. So Kenneth Walker, a very safe bet to have at least a borderline workhorse role in 2024. I think that's a pretty solid pick that you have there. All right, so Team 9, kind of a weird one. We got a positional advantage, or two positional advantages with CeeDee Lamb and Bijan Robinson. Now, this team is in need of a second quarterback. Bryce Young is finally nearing the ADP, but the issue is this is a team that's built to win now, right? Justin Fields is a risky option. We covered that in the last video. But there is a world where CeeDee Lamb and Bijan are top 3 at their respective positions. DJ Moore was obviously top 10 this past year, and worst case scenario, he sticks with Justin Fields, right? Best case scenario, he gets Caleb Williams. So I think DJ Moore is still a pretty safe bet. I got to go for a guy that can help me win immediately. So I think this is not the direction that I expected to take this team in, because I'm usually not one that really drafts Deebo Samuel too highly here. But Deebo Samuel, I mean, dude, when he has big games, he has big games. He is a versatile threat. There's a lot of rumors circulating that Brandon Ayuk can be out of his, or out of San Francisco next year, right? He could be traded this offseason because he's kind of unhappy with what's going on there. If anyone leaves this offense, it's obviously going to give an uptick to everyone currently there. Deebo Samuel, while I don't think he is as talented of a wide receiver as Brandon Ayuk is, Deebo is a hell of an athlete, and he's going to continue to be a very phenomenal fantasy asset. So a little bit on the older side with him. He's really the first, older guy on this team. But that even said, I mean, he's 28 years old. That's the prime age for wide receivers. So I don't necessarily think it's bad value here at 509, despite it being a slight reach according to the sleeper ADP.
Yeah, and I mean, I love Deebo Samuel, and I think it's funny. This team, has 3 guys that I consider like buy lows. I love Justin Fields in terms of like wherever he could land. I don't love having him as my one and only quarterback through 5 rounds, but I love DJ Moore as a buy low because he's, either going to have Justin Fields again or the worst case scenario, Caleb Williams, Then Deebo, I think, obviously has the weekly upside to win you a week. I think he is every bit of the producer as Brandon Ayuk. Obviously he's 28 years old, but I like, having him on my roster, especially as a wide receiver 3. I think he fills a good gap there. For my team at team 10, I'm gonna hammer home another receiver. Shocker here. I'm gonna take Tank Dell. I'm gonna take Tank Dell over JSN, which is saying a lot. But the fact is he's tied to CJ Stroud, and he has a good relationship with CJ Stroud. I know he's coming off an injury, but I think he's going to be just fine moving forward. He's older than you would like him to be. I think he's got kind of a capped ceiling because that offense is going to be pretty spread out when you have a quarterback like that. I don't think he's going to be a true alpha wide receiver 1 over, Nico Collins. I think it's going to be a 1A, 1B type situation. So, but I do think he's going to be tied to CJ Stroud for, the remainder of his rookie contract, if not longer than that. I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think he's going to continue to be a fantasy producer. So I'm going to take Tank Dell and feel good about, the floor at wide receiver 3.
Yeah, nothing wrong with taking Tank Dell there. I'm glad you did, because it's starting to get into the territory where I would be tempted to take Tank Dell. I kind of alluded to it in the last video that we had here. I'm just not as high on him as a lot of people are. He's a guy that, I don't have him in many spots, but wherever I do, I am exploring the trade market. I'm not giving him away, but I'm definitely looking to sell high on Tank Dell just because, I mean, dude, coming in as a second-year receiver in 2024, he's going to be 25 years old already, right? Obviously, he is tied with CJ Stroud, but they've got Nico Collins. What's stopping them from going out and getting another weapon for CJ Stroud, right? This offense is going to kind of keep evolving there. I don't know. I think 5'10 is fair value for Tank Dell. I'm perfectly content with where you took him, but I'm just not as high on him as the rest of the world seems to be for whatever reason. But next pick here, 5'11, pretty easy one for me, right? I have the 101, the 102, pick 4 as well, and Sam Laporta. This is a young team that has no business contending in year 1, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I am going to take JSN. I think JSN going after Tank Dell, Zay Flowers, Rashi, I think there's 4 or 5 rookie receivers that we took over him. I think that's fair. I think that if this team had any chance of competing in 2024, I might not consider taking JSN because he might be one of those guys that we might need to wait to see a year 3 breakout on, which is normal, by the way, right? We kind of noted that in the last video, that year 3 breakouts is a pretty normal thing to expect from wide receivers. We're just spoiled recently. But JSN was, the 101, 102 in a lot of leagues last year. I don't want to say 101. That's a lie. But he was pretty highly regarded, right? And he did not play to expectations, but we know that he's talented. We've already spoke to Tyler Lockett potentially being out the door in Seattle. So it'll be exciting. I think it lines up perfectly. This team is, Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., the 104, It's either Neighbors or Jaden Daniels or Drake May. Obviously, we wouldn't know until draft day, but I think this is a team I just want to keep as young and as much upside as possible, and I think JSN fits the bill perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I still believe in JSN. It's tough for me to go buy him right now because I, bought him all over the place last year at, expensive
At
values
the
and
premium.
like spending any more on him. Yeah, I think that it gives you some flexibility. I think he can only go up from here. If his value falls out, worst case scenario, you spent the 511 on him. I think that's great. I'm gonna go here with the 107, 108.
Wow.
Give it to me back to back. I'm just gonna dominate the tier. I'm gonna make it easy on myself. I think that there's not a lot of these running backs that I would want to be swapping for one of those picks, or rather, I wouldn't want to swap one of those picks for these running backs. I think that's what this tier is really at. I wouldn't really want to spend that pick on Bryce Young. I'd rather take a shot on another guy who might end up in a better situation than him. So, yeah, I'm gonna just take the back to back and dominate that tier and have what is that, the 104? Yeah, 104, 107, 108. I like going into that with Amon-Ra, A-Rich, and ETN to build around. I think it gives me some options and lets me put the decisions off till later.
Yeah, and on paper, the Superflex rookie drafts, there seems to be a tier break between 107 and 108, but that's just on paper, right? That's assuming that there's only 3 good quarterbacks, Brock Bowers, and you got your 2 wide receivers. But JJ McCarthy could go first round. Bo Nix could go first round. Michael Penix could go first round. Suddenly you're looking at guys like that in the 108 contention. Or Odunze could fall. Neighbors could fall, right? We don't know what's going to happen. So 108, there's a perceived tier break there at the moment, but I think it's going to be bunched into that top tier come draft day, right? Just because we don't know how these things are going to shake up. So I think that lines up with that team perfectly. Probably what I would have done as well is going with those back-to-back picks to keep your team nice and young there. Bryce Young, he's going to be my pick here. The skid is going to stop. Look, same reason why I just bought JSN. That's why I'm going to buy Bryce Young. A very poor rookie showing, but a lot of things were working against Bryce Young in Carolina. We have not seen a rookie come into the NFL with I think he was through 12 or 13 weeks on pace to be the third most sacked rookie quarterback of all time. Like, the offensive line is, I mean, dude, I'm a Panthers fan. The offensive line is terrible. The wide receivers are terrible. When 33-year-old Adam Thielen is your number 1 wide receiver, you do not have a good wide receiver core. There was no running game. There was nothing on offense really helping Bryce Young. I want to see him step up in 2024. I think we could see him step up in 2024. But considering where he was going in startups this time last year, I think 602 is a phenomenal spot to get him if you are, punting 2024. And we'll see what happens with him. Because at the very least, he probably still will be a starting quarterback in 2025. And I just locked up a starting quarterback at this point who's only 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense for this team as well. It's not going to take a lot for either Bryce Young or JSN to really recoup their value from last year. If they come out and have 3 really good games, if they put up, if JSN comes out and puts up 16, 17 points a game to start off the year, Bryce Young goes out there and puts up 20 with, maybe he gets a good schedule, maybe they give him a wide receiver, maybe they find a way to make that happen, I think that it either, these guys could easily recoup their value from last year. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams are both, going to be locked in value assets, at least, even if they don't really produce their rookie year. I think it just makes a lot of sense to go out and get Bryce Young and take that risk with that roster. Here I'm going to look, and I'm going to take, I feel good about the start here with this receiver, and I feel like, again, the tier is getting kind of flat. I'm going to go out and I'm going to take Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's the running back that I feel the best about on the board. This is about the range where I want to start investing my draft capital in them. I feel like the Chiefs just love him. They designed plays for him. They have him on a cheap contract, and he's going to be there for a while. And I just I'll make the 1 or 2 year bet on Isaiah Pacheco and let the rest rotate in. And yeah, I feel good about it.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Pacheco. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to come back. Jerick McKinnon's not going to come back. And whoever they sign in free agency is going to be just a guy, right? It's going to be a guy in that same tier or that same conversation as Clyde Edwards or Jerick McKinnon. So Pacheco's locked and loaded for his starting role. And I mean, dude, he's one of the most fun people to actually root for on game day because he just runs like he's really pissed off, right? So I like that pick for you there. On this one, I know I still need a second quarterback, but like, dude, at this point, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Will Levis kind of in a different conversation, but Matt Stafford, Geno Smith, Russell Wilson, Danny Jones, like, there's no chance I'm taking any of these guys in round 6, despite actually needing a second quarterback, because I can get one of them very likely in round 8 without having to worry too much about it. I'm going to take my second running back here. I'm going to take Rachaad White. And here's my rationale behind it. Josh Jacobs is there, Saquon Barkley is there, and James Cook is there. James Cook, I like him, but I think that Buffalo is going to get someone this offseason that's going to at the very least cut into James Cook's short yardage situations, which I don't love. Josh Jacobs was really good the last 2 years. He's going to go to a new spot. He's going to we don't know what's going on with him, right? And then on top of him, we got Saquon Barkley, who we know is always injured, is really good, but he is getting up there in age, and he's also going to be in a new situation. So rather than betting on any of those guys finding the perfect situation, I'm just going to take Rachaad White. Inefficient as all hell, and I'll admit that, but who cares? He gets the volume. He is one of only 2 running backs, the other one being Breece Hall, to have over 500 yards after the catch in 2023. So give me Rachaad White. This is a PPR league. Every league should be PPR, right, at this point. And there's a very high weekly floor. And if he finds the end zone, I'll be pretty damn happy, right? So I think he's a very solid RB2 for the squad.
Yeah, I like Rachaad White, and I love having him. I mean, he's my RB1 in a lot of spots in a lot of my rosters still, where I can't liquidate him for a future first round pick and a second or something like that. I'm still holding on to him. I think he's gonna still get the lion's share of the work there in Tampa Bay. I think he's just fine to roster there. Here, I'm going to take a guy that you mentioned before. I'm going to take Saquon Barkley. I mean, the guy, he still was top 10 running back in terms of points per game last year. Top 5 in like WARP and wins over replacement players. So I'm going to take Saquon and pair him up with Kenny Walker and feel good about a running back room in at least one of my rosters here.
Yeah, it's a solid move. I mean, I won't talk too much on Saquon because we know what Saquon is. We know what he can be. It's just a matter on where is he going to land. And very likely it's not going to be with New York, right? So it's going to be an uptick situation.
Yeah, there's so many good spots for him to go to, so it's just like, to give me Saquon, I'll take him with Kenny Walker.
Exactly. So at this point, part of me does want to go either Josh Jacobs or James Cook. James Cook is actually, I would take him over Josh Jacobs, even though I do think Buffalo could bring in some sort of contention. I still think James Cook is going to be a safe, RB10 to RB15 range most weeks, which I'd be perfectly content with. But I don't really want to do that. I kind of want to take the discount on TJ Hawkinson here. I know I said I don't regard him in the same tier necessarily as guys like Trey McBride and Mark Andrews at this point because he is coming off that big injury. But I mean, there's a very real chance that Minnesota will find a way to retain Kirk Cousins, or at the very least is going to go out and draft a rookie quarterback. And if they get a rookie quarterback, who's a rookie quarterback's best friend? It's probably going to be Justin Jefferson, but usually in most cases it's tight ends, right? So give me TJ Hawkinson, even coming off of the big injury, he's still going to be a top 4, top 5, tight end for another handful of years here.
Yeah, I like the Hawkinson pick. He's going to be a positional advantage when he comes back, and you're going to be able to find replacement players for him later on in the draft. Next year he's definitely going to get drafted higher than 6'6". He's going to be drafted in the same range as the Laporta McBride Andrews. He's not going to fall the full round further than them. Here I am, feeling like this is a pretty gross spot on the board. I don't really like anything that I look at here. But I am going to just, continue to make the bets on, the past 2 years of receivers. And these are going to be like the misfits, but I'm going to take George Pickens. He's a guy who had a had a pretty decent year. When he got the targets, when Mason Rudolph was in the game, he ended up scoring a lot of fantasy points. So even though I don't love George Pickens, I'm not really trading for him anywhere. I think he's the one that fits the build, and I would swallow the pill and just take him here and hope that I mean, I hate that Arthur Smith is going there, but yeah, I don't know. I'll take a piece of it. I'm selling all the pieces of the Pittsburgh offense, but he just makes sense for this team, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, at 6'7", this is where you're going to take a younger guy like that, and I mean, who knows? George Pickens could force his way out of Pittsburgh by the end of 2024 anyway, with all that he does. My risky team here, Team 5, right, kind of swinging for the fences. I can't decide if I do want to swing for the fences or if I want to do something kind of practical here. My practical pick is going to be James Cook, right? The ADP suggests he should have gone almost 2 full rounds ago at this point. I think the fact that he's still there is pretty good, right? Because we do see some big weeks out of him. But I do think that his overall ceiling is capped. And I think I could probably find a higher ceiling running back at some point, either in the 7th round or the 8th round, to pair with Jonathan Taylor here. So I'm going to get really risky here. I'm going to keep risking it for the biscuit. I'm going to take Kyle Pitts, right? We know that Kyle Pitts he was an elite prospect. We've been excited about him. I mean, dude, even last year, right? Even last year, he was going, top 3, top 4 rounds in startups. The fact that you can get him midway through the 6th round right now, I think is pretty good. Some people might call me crazy for taking him over Dalton Kincaid. I think Dalton Kincaid was a product of just getting good volume with Buffalo after Dawson Knox went down. I don't think Dalton Kincaid is nearly as talented as Kyle Pitts is. And I think Dalton Kincaid's probably safer because we've seen him be safe in year 1. But we also saw Kyle Pitts be quote-unquote safe in year 1, right? So give me the guy that's got more athleticism, going to be in a completely new situation this year, and hopefully Atlanta goes out and gets the guy a damn quarterback.
Yeah, I think they have no other option but to get a quarterback. So I like having Kyle Pitts on my rosters right now. I think he's gonna gain in value the same way Drake London and Bijan Robinson probably will going forward. I feel like the board is gross, and there's nobody. I guess it's boring and it's a cop out, but there's nobody on the board here I would take over the 109. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I mean, it makes sense for the team, right? I won't even begin to guess what 109 looks like at this point. You're probably still looking at guys like Bo Nix, Michael Penix, things of that sort. Maybe Brian Thomas or whoever else there. Maybe the RB1 at that point in this class, right? We don't really know who the RB1 is going to shake out to be. It's probably just going to be whoever goes the highest on draft day, right? Because there's not really a lot of sexy names out there on the running back market for rookies, but it is what it is. Keeping your team nice and young there. I mean, this is an incredibly young team. The only younger team has, 3 draft picks there, but even that is not. I mean, they're very similar in stature, and I think yours is a bit more talented than the one that I've built over there, but that's okay. It's finally time for me to grab a wide receiver for this team. So I got Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson, Mark Andrews, Breece Hall, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Chances are the next 3 picks are going to be wide receivers. Now, Jaden Reed, I'm not buying into. I don't want to punish a guy for being efficient, but he did not have a massive snap share. You really can't expect someone to be as efficient as he was. Stephon Diggs, I think, is kind of fading into the twilight of his career. He really took a step back in 2023. His age isn't helping him. I don't know what's going on with him and Josh Allen, but I don't think Stephon Diggs is going to be my pick here either. Funny enough, even with Devontae Adams there on the board, knowing that I'm going for an older wide receiver at this point, I'm going to take Mike Evans, dude. Mike Evans is a guy I was drafting just about everywhere I could last year. It worked out for me. There's no reason to fade Mike Evans. He looks just as good as he always had. He is very likely leaving Tampa Bay, right? Even if he stays in Tampa Bay, we know what he is with Baker Mayfield, and we know it's still a pretty damn good receiver. He had some massive weeks in 2023. But if he goes somewhere, if he leaves Tampa Bay, he's just going to go ring chasing, in my opinion, right? He's going to go and maybe replace Stephon Diggs in Buffalo. He could go and be catching balls from Pat Mahomes. Houston could go out and offer him a good contract to play with CJ Stroud, right? I think Mike Evans, there's nothing but positive scenarios for him in 2024, and that even includes sticking in Tampa Bay. So I don't love that my wide receiver one is in his 30s, but I do love that my wide receiver one is a guaranteed lock for at least 1,000 yards every year.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who might get the chance to catch balls from Baker Mayfield or, Pat Mahomes are, lucky guys. So I'll take them there. Actually, I'm going to take the guy you just mentioned. I'm going to take Baker Mayfield on the team with Pat Mahomes. It's a reach in terms of sleeper ADP, but I don't think I would let him go for the 110. I don't think I would let him go for any of the players on the board. I think that, he's going to return to Tampa Bay, and I think that he is going to, still be in a pretty good situation and a team that throws the ball a lot. So I think I'm going to take Baker Mayfield, pair him with Pat Mahomes, seeing that the Josh Allen team needs a quarterback, and knowing that they have, a full 24 picks before it's going to get back to them. I think they might end up taking one here. Don't know. Let's see what you're going to do. But I do think Baker Mayfield's one I feel good about, and there's a couple running backs I'm going to feel good about, like adding to this room to turn it into a contending roster. So I think I am doing a pretty good job with the Pat Mahomes start. So freak you, Josh Allen.
Yeah, it might be a very big risk for me not to go quarterback here, but I'm not going to go quarterback here. I'll see what I can fill in the 8-12 for this team. Like I said, I'm going for it in year one. I don't think, going for Kirk Cousins or Matt Stafford or Geno, like taking my pick in those guys is not going to be a difference maker, in my opinion, as long as I can get someone like that at some point in the draft, which I'm going to be risky, right? Worst case scenario, I'd have to make a trade once the draft wraps up here. I'm still not going for Jaden Reed. Like I said, part of me is okay with taking Stephon Diggs with one of these picks because I do have Josh Allen, but I also believe that Stephon Diggs could be out of Buffalo, or I don't know. I think one thing's for sure, I am going to take Devontae Adams to pair with my oldest dirt receiver room with Tyreek Hill, right? I mean, it's Devontae Adams. I don't care who's throwing the ball to him. He's still a phenomenal receiver, and he's going to continue to be a phenomenal receiver. In terms of my next receiver, I could go for Chris Godwin, but that's saving me he's a whole 2 years younger than Stephon Diggs at this point. I don't know, man. I'm really conflicted here. I think just for the sake of it, mainly because I have Josh Allen and because I am going for it in year one, I will take the risk and maybe Stephon Diggs will bounce back. Now, if you went into the 2023 season with a roster of Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and Stephon Diggs, you damn well know you're not youthful, but it's a really good receiver room. Don't have the same confidence heading into 2024 as I would have in 2023, but this is still very much a big upside winning roster in year one, so could come back to bite me, right? I don't have any youth on this team at the moment outside of Kyron and Trey McBride, but it lines up with what I'm doing here, and I'm just really going to cross my fingers that a quarterback makes it back to me in the 8th round.
Yeah, I mean, dude, align yourself with like a direction and go for it. Do your best to make your lineup make sense. So I think that that does a good job of that. I think you will be able to get, Kirk Cousins, or, easily like an Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, I wouldn't probably even consider him back in the 8th round, 8th, 9th swing. But here I'm going to take a guy I think is kind of undervalued, in terms of like what you're going to get out of a running back, these bets that you're making. I'm going to take Alvin Kamara, 28-year-old Alvin Kamara. Guy was top 5 in terms of like wins over replacement and top 12 in terms of like points per game this year. So I'm going to pair him up with A-Chain and feel good about like that 4 really scoring points and hoping that if Garrett Wilson, Brandon Ayuk, and Rashee Rice just smash, I'm gonna feel good about like putting that lineup out every week.
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that Alvin Kamara can't still be pretty damn relevant in 2024. I mean, he was, I think, either the RB3 or RB4 points per game in 2023 in PPR leagues. And I mean, that's going to continue. I would love to see Kendre Miller do something in that offense, but I mean, he had an injury-riddled rookie season, and when he did play, he wasn't particularly good. So I think it's still going to be the Alvin Kamara show in 2024. Yeah, I mean, it's a Band-Aid, but usually your RB2 is just going to be a Band-Aid, for 1 or 2 years there. So I think Alvin Kamara is a very solid move for a contending roster. I got to go with wide receiver here. I have to. I've punted the position way too much where Mike Evans is my only wide receiver here. I am, again, still avoiding Jaden Reed. Sorry. I'm going to avoid Christian Watson if you have to ask why. you haven't been watching the channel, but I don't like Christian Watson. Never have, never will. But Chris Godwin, if I didn't have Mike Evans, I would take here. But on the odd chance that Mike Evans does stay in Tampa Bay, I don't necessarily want to rely on both Tampa receivers there. I think I'm actually going to take Amari Cooper. Again, still a very old wide receiver room pairing him with Mike Evans, but Amari Cooper has week winning upside. I mean, dude, we saw him go off for like 50 plus fantasy points in the fantasy playoffs out of all things. And I do get a mini stack, Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson. I think that's going to be pretty good if Deshaun Watson can bounce back. So good year one contender. I going to have my work cut out for me to make this receiver room kind of younger later on in the draft, but we'll go for late round flyers and just hope that we can hit our 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think Amari Cooper, again, makes a lot of sense for that roster. I think that he's shown that he's kind of like quarterback proof. He just is good. I think he's, in that same range of, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, and Mike Evans, and, just slightly younger. He was a great prospect coming out of college. I obviously loved watching him play for the Cowboys. He did a great job for them. He's doing a great job for Cleveland. So I like the addition of Amari Cooper to that roster. That's, especially pairing him, with Deshaun Watson, getting that stack too. Didn't even see that. Not sure if that kicked into your head there. But yeah, that definitely
Admittedly, didn't see it until I was selecting draft, but oh yeah, works out.
The same thing happened in like the 4th round when I took Jalen Waddle to attack by Lilla. You brought it up, and I was like, oh yeah, I totally saw that. But here with Team 4, I think I'm just gonna follow suit and give me the 110. I would, on a team where I'm already, I want to dominate tiers of the draft, and I think, where you already have picks, it makes sense to get more of those picks and see what you can turn them into. You're already making the bet on the class, so give me the 110.
Yeah, I'm going to start writing them in here just because now that we have so many rookie picks, I don't feel like trying to remember where we're at. So 110, that was the most recent rookie pick selected. Just put it here in the chat. With this team, I was considering going James Cook the last time. I'm kind of surprised James Cook is still there. ADP of 49, but I'm getting him here at pick, what's this, like 76 or something like that? I think that's a really good value spot here. So I am going to take James Cook. I think, like I said, his ceiling is capped, but he does have a nice, safe floor. And it's about time I get, outside of T-Law, someone with a safe floor on this team. So I think it makes sense there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest James Cook fan in the world, but like he fills the same exact role that Alvin Kamara and all of these, pretty much all the guys that were drafted in the last round and a half do. I don't think he's not going to win you any weeks, but he's perfect to pair with Jonathan Taylor and on a team where you're going to be looking to throw out a championship team and bring some money back this year. Here I am with Team 6, and I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid. I'm going to just pencil him in and hope that, he's in the same tier as the guys that went, at the 5-3. I think, like, it's not difficult for me to get from a guy like Dalton Kincaid to Sam Laporta, so I'm going to be happy with him in the value, like 3.5 rounds later,
Yeah, and it's funny. I just realized if we're not counting your rookie pick that will probably eventually turn into Brock Bowers, this is the first tight end that you've taken purposely in this entire draft. It only took 7.5 rounds to get us there, but welcome aboard, buddy.
Well, I mean, I think he's the bottom of the tier. I mean, you still look, dude. There's guys, Travis Kelce and George Kittle are still on the freaking board. Like I'm not going to be upset about drafting either of those guys, because I'll just kick it down until you feel like you're going to take a second one of them,
Yeah,
do that.
It is pretty wild how far Travis Kelce. I mean, I kind of expect George Kittle to fall. He is so hit or miss, right, in a lot of weeks, but Travis Kelce is always pretty damn good. Started showing his age in 2023, but he'll be back in 2024, and he's still going to be Travis Kelce at the end of the day. So, admittedly, he probably should be gone at some point in round 7, so we'll see if we do get there. My Team 7 here, I need my first running back. Now, this is finally where, okay, maybe I do want to take a gamble on Jaden Reed and go for that efficiency. I am a big fan of Chris Godwin, and Chris Godwin, I mean, he's only 27 years old. I think he just turned 27 recently. He's younger than people realize he is, and he has been pretty damn good, but he just doesn't offer, kind of like an elite upside. So I think I am going to go with running back here. Now, it's going to be either Josh Jacobs or DeAndre Swift. I know a lot of people are high on Tajay Spears. I'm not buying in just yet. Najee Harris, David Montgomery, Joe Mixon, Brian Robinson. Like none. I think there is a tier break after Josh Jacobs and DeAndre Swift are off the board. If I think DeAndre Swift is going to stay in Philly, and that's why I'm going to take the risk on Josh Jacobs, hoping that he lands in a positive situation. I do think whoever the new offensive coordinator is going to be in Philly in 2024, I do think that they will actually use DeAndre Swift how he's supposed to be used. But we just saw too many hit or miss weeks out of DeAndre Swift with Philly in 2023. So it makes me a little nervous. When Josh Jacobs is on the field, he is a game wrecker when he wants to be. So we'll take the risk. He's my RB1, and we'll see where he lands.
Yeah, and I like Josh Jacobs there. I think he definitely makes a lot of sense, and I think I like him a lot over, we don't know where DeAndre Swift's going to be next year, and we've really only seen him be successful 1 year really of his career, and it was only really in the first half of the season. In the spots where I own DeAndre Swift, I didn't like him, so I like Josh Jacobs at kind of the bottom of that tier. I don't like buying into Tajay Spears as well. Like, I don't think his value is going to really increase even when, or if and when, Derrick Henry moves on and they don't add anybody to complement him in that backfield. I don't think he's going to be worth much more than he is right now. So I don't really want to buy into that asset. I think the hype is kind of being overrun there. Here I'm gonna take one of the tight ends. It's close enough in terms of production that I'm gonna take the 4 years in age difference with George Kittle over Travis Kelce here. I'm gonna take George Kittle and add him to a pretty good roster and try to fill in, again, a flat tier receivers, flat tier running backs. I'm going to go ahead and try to take a positional advantage that's going to score, close to as many points as, like I said before. Same reason with Kincaid. I hope he's going to score as close to as many points as the guys that were drafted in the 4th and the 5th.
Dude, when you said 4-year age gap, I had to check that. Like, I did not realize George Kittle was 4 years younger than Travis Kelce. I thought it was a year, maybe 2 max. So I like that you called that out. And I'm going to take the other guy. I am going to take Travis Kelce here. Still don't have a second quarterback, but if I'm swinging for the fences, I might as well keep on going with Travis Kelce because, as we all know, when Travis Kelce's on, there's not many, if any, tight ends better than him. So I'll take him even if it's only for a year or two there.
Yeah, and I like Travis Kelce there. I mean, like I said, I was, debating back and forth, and really the only, I don't really expect George Kittle to be, useful beyond like the next year or two. But I mean, when people open up the sleeper profile, they're not going to be able to look at me and say, oh, he's, 35 years old, like they will be able to say with Travis Kelce. So I'll at least be able to say, hey, Travis Kelce was, viable until he was 35 years old. So George Kittle has 4 more years, at least be able to try to spin that and convince somebody. Here, I'm going to try to take, I think he's actually kind of really undervalued. I don't know how many receivers have gone off the board here. Obviously a lot because I'm involved in this draft. But I'm going to take Terry McLaurin. I think he's perennially, top 24 receiver. And I think he's going to get a really good upgrade at quarterback this year. I mean, if Drake May is throwing him the ball, Jaden Daniels, whoever, is throwing Terry McLaurin the football, I'm gonna enjoy watching it. I'm gonna think it's probably the best situation that he's had in his career since Kirk Cousins. So I'm gonna hope that him going into his prime, 28, 29-year-old season, hopefully this is where he really just smashes and goes off into the twilight of his career. By smash, I mean, give me the top 15 season. That's all I really want in terms of upside for him, and I don't think that it's too far-fetched. And again, him into 7-10. I like it.
Yeah, Terry's one of the better receivers in the league. He's just kind of similar to what happened to DJ Moore, right? I wouldn't even say Justin Fields is a phenomenal quarterback, but DJ Moore finally got a quarterback upgrade in an offense that actually wants to get him the ball. And I think with Washington having a coaching change, having a new quarterback coming, I do think Terry is going to be the focal point of this offense. And it was only a matter of time before one of us took him, right? My pick 7-11, this is where I'm taking Jaden Reed. It makes too much sense with this young team that I'm building. And like I said, I don't necessarily know if he can keep up with the efficiency, but at pick 7-11, I will go and take the risk on that. If he continues doing, what he did in the last half of the season, he's going to be a steal in this draft. So Jaden Reed, pair him up with my only other receiver in JSN. Obviously, I have, pick 1, 2, and 4 here as well. Solid young team here, and I think Jaden Reed at 7-11 is kind of a steal for this team specifically.
Yeah, and to be honest, like I was looking here and who would I really want, either Jaden Reed or the picks off the board, and it probably would I wouldn't really sell Jaden Reed for just the 111, but I'm gonna follow suit and just keep dipping my toes in different tiers of this draft. This team with Team 12 has a pick in the top 5, has the 8 and the 9 or the 7 and the 8, and I'm gonna follow suit here. And I'm gonna take the 11 and 12. I'm just gonna dip my toes in each and follow suit. I think it makes sense to pick them when you already have them. Like I said before, just dominate the tiers and really control the draft. See what you can get for those kinds of for those guys, and see what you can turn those picks into. So I'm pretty confident that like I can move around and go get a Terry McLaurin, go get people are going to look my way if I say, hey, do you want the 112 for your Najee Harris and the guys on the board? So I'm gonna take it and feel okay about it.
Yeah, I think that's solid there. So that's 112. I'm actually tempted to take 201 at this point with this team because, I mean, usually a quarterback falls out and into the late first, early second, especially in a deep quarterback class like this. There's a lot of receivers. There's a chance the RB1 of the class doesn't go until 201. I like the other tight end in this draft, Jatavian Sanders, I think his name is. I don't know if I'm saying his first name right, but there is a lot of value to be had in the 201. Now, I will not lie. There is a part of me that wants to take Javonte Williams here because he's only 23 years old. I think, blind taste testing here, I think I would take Javonte Williams over any running back that's going to be available in this rookie class. And I mean, again, he's only 23 years old. Even though this is not a contending team, we know what Javonte Williams can potentially be. And if he bounces back in 2024, I mean, don't forget, dude, this time a year and a half ago, Javonte Williams was like a top 3, top 4 dynasty running back. So I think I kind of talked myself into actually going Javonte rather than the 201. I just think there's such a high upside there. And if he hits this year, great. I can sell him and probably get a mid to late first round pick next, probably a late first round pick, but it'll still be a higher value than the 201. And if he takes another year to produce, then whatever. I need a running back at some point anyway. So I think Javonte is a good kind of wait and see approach here because at one point we did all think that he was going to be a top 3 guy.
Yeah, I like Javonte a lot there. I mean, obviously, he still has age on his side, and I think that he has shown the ability to score those 15, 20-point weeks when they get him the ball, and just hopefully he comes back really healthy this year and shows us what we saw earlier on in his career. Here I'm going to stick to the running back suit. I'm going to take Joe Mixon and feel really good about having him as my RB2. He gives you that week winning upside. He can score 25 points in any given week. I really like having him in an elite offense, at least for right now. And I think that Cincinnati, I think, is going to let him retire a Bengal. Maybe that's just a personal opinion of mine, but whatever the reports are, I don't really know. But I'm going to take Joe Mixon because I think he's a really good running back and a really good value.
And Joe Mixon's an interesting one because I don't necessarily know if Cincinnati's going to keep him around with his cap hit in 2024. But I mean, if they do, he's an obvious, good running back to have there. And even if he does get let go, he's going to go somewhere and still have the lion's share, more than likely wherever he goes. So he's taken a step back, but he was perfectly serviceable in 2023. I imagine he'll stay serviceable in 2024. Now, Team 9 here, I'm going to do something weird. It really doesn't align with the rest of this team, but I'm going to take my chance and I'm going to take my second quarterback, and it's actually going to be Will Levis out of everyone. Give me the youth, give me the upside. We've seen Will Levis at least have a handful of good games there, right? Tennessee could go out, they could get a round 1 wide receiver. They are a popular mock point for Odunze, or if Neighbors falls, or Brian Thomas even, right? There's a lot of scenarios where Will Levis could find himself in a better situation. Plus, there's going to be a new coaching staff. Now, that could spell trouble for Will Levis. Maybe he doesn't have the longevity kind of opportunity that we think. But if I'm not mistaken, I think Tennessee did trade up to grab him last year at the start of the second round. Maybe I'm making that up. I hope I'm not. But I do think that we could see a decent 2024 out of Will Levis. I don't think that Kirk Cousins coming off of an injury, Matt Stafford being his age, Geno Smith, I don't think any of those guys offers exponentially more immediate upside than Will Levis. So I'm going to take the guy that's about 10 years younger than all of them, and we'll take the risk here.
Yeah, I really like Will Levis there. I do not think that there's a 3-round difference or 2-round difference between him and Bryce Young and Baker Mayfield. I think he's a good bet to make when you're making a bet on Justin Fields. And like that team's a wonky team, but
Yes.
I mean I like it. It's good to score some points, and you took some shots on some guys and just let the board fall to you, I guess. Yeah. Here with this team, I feel thin at receiver for me. Usually by the 8th round, I don't have only 2 receivers. So here I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take Cooper Kupp. I don't like Cooper. I don't like owning Cooper Kupp. Really, I don't own Cooper Kupp anywhere. But if I was on the board here, I think he's the guy who he's gonna slot in as my wide receiver 3. I don't care if he scores 10 to 4 points in a week. And he might score 25. There's no difference in those 10 to 4 weeks. I'll just take him for the 25-point ones and just leave him in my lineup and see what happens.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp is definitely an interesting commodity, but for what he is, I'm not selling him right now, right? Unless someone wants to overpay for Cooper Kupp, I think he is the perfect definition of a hold or maybe even a buy low for contending teams. Now, I'm personally not sending away a top 15, top 16 draft capital to get Cooper Kupp if I am a contender, but I'm also not willing to sell for something late like a 15 or 16 overall pick. So I think Cooper Kupp is just a pure hold in a lot of situations right now, and fingers crossed that he bounces back in 2024 because the league is just a better place when Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupping there. 8-6 here, easy pick for me. Almost took DeAndre Swift instead of Josh Jacobs, so I'm just going to pair Josh Jacobs with DeAndre Swift. Now I don't need to worry about did I make the right pick, did I not? I picked them both. Chances are one of them will be a wrong pick, but hopefully that means one of them will be a right pick. And now I kind of have a starting roster here, right? There's obviously going to still be some flex options, more than likely. After the 8th round, I'm looking to build out this wide receiver room, but I think the wide receiver room is solid enough to where I can go into round 9 with just 3 receivers here. So Josh Jacobs, DeAndre Swift, rounding out that starting lineup.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice and balanced lineup. I'd like you're not overly invested into youth nor points, but I think you're right in the middle there, and you're going to be in contention, from the very beginning. Here, this team from the 6th slot is literally my least favorite team that I've drafted so far. But I'm gonna it's disgusting. I'm gonna take Tajay Spears because a lot of people are excited about him. So I'm just gonna take Tajay Spears and hope that I can move him somewhere, even though he's not really the guy that I want to be starting in my lineup.
Yeah, I was considering Tajay Spears as well for the appeal there, but the 201 is still on the board. And honestly, if anyone offered me 201 straight up for Tajay Spears, I'm probably taking 201 in a majority of situations out there. This one, I still need a 3rd receiver. I don't love only having 2 receivers going into the 8th round. I've kind of flirted with the idea of taking Chris Godwin on some of my other teams here. I'm just going to do a quick glimpse. Keenan Allen is still there, but I think A.J. Brown and T. Higgins is not the safest wide receiver room. There's a lot of upside to be had there, but I think I'm going to take some safety with Chris Godwin here. Again, he's only 27 years old. If Mike Evans leaves, Chris Godwin's going to be the de facto wide receiver 1. If Mike Evans stay, okay, well, we know what Chris Godwin is. We know that he's consistent. This past year, wide receiver 29, not amazing, right? But in the 8th round, that's perfectly fine for a wide receiver 3. We have seen him have, a wide receiver 2 overall finish all those years ago. That was kind of nuts. But 16, 19, if he can flirt with top 20 numbers midway through the 8th for me as my wide receiver 3, I'll take that every time.
Yeah, I like Chris Godwin again, especially for that build. He bet on to be your wide receiver 3, and the board is gross, so it's kind of hard to go wrong here. There's no real oh my god value misses here. There's no shockers that are still on the board. But here I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take the 201. Yeah, just follow suit. I think 201 is not gonna be a bad range this year. I think this if a running back does sneak up into the 2nd or 3rd round. this is where like he's probably going to be taken. You know, if one of those guys goes to like the Cowboys or something early on, the Chargers, whatever, early on, like he's going to be a highly valued running back. And people are going to think he's going to be able to produce right away. So I'm going to take that 201 and take another dip into that range.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, nothing else to say about the 201, right? Especially with this team, you're going for youth. It's evident. It makes a lot of sense there. The guy that I'm looking for, I don't seem to see him. Now, there's no way, unless one of us has taken him already, and I just don't remember, but I don't see him off the board here. Let me see if I can find him. I really want to see where he is because I think he should be up in this range. Romeo Dobbs, dude. ADP 127 on Sleeper, that's not right. There's that. I refuse to believe that is a correct valuation on Romeo Dobbs. I think he is a very incredibly solid wide receiver 3 for this team. I finally get some youth on here. Now, yes, the whole story here, wide receiver 36 overall, not amazing, right? But he was really good for them in the playoffs. We know that Jordan Love, no pun intended, but Jordan Love does love Romeo Dobbs, and Dobbs is going to continue to be a really solid, kind of weekly wide receiver 3 with some upside there. And yeah, maybe it is a hot take taking him over Christian Watson, but Romeo Dobbs has had health and has had more success than Christian Watson. Christian Watson, again, back to his rookie year, dude, it was just all about efficiency, that between his injury concerns and it just being too much efficiency, not something he can keep up with. I think Dobbs is a very safe, reliable 23-year-old wide receiver 3 that's just going to continue building with Jordan Love. Sure, again, hot take over Christian Watson, Christian Kirk, Deontay Johnson. Like maybe Keenan Allen would have better fit this team, but I already have Mike Evans and Amari Cooper. I need to mix in some youth, and I think Dobbs does offer enough upside for me to take him there.
Yeah, I don't mind Dobbs there. I mean, he's not really someone again, I'm not crazy about anybody in this range, so tough for me to really find much worse things to say about him over Christian Watson or Christian Kirk. I like Christian Kirk as a player. I like Kirk Cousins as a player. We don't know where he's going to be next year. All of that good jazz. Here with the Mahomes team, I'm going to take Ramondre Stevenson. He was a good, serviceable running back when he was healthy. We know that the Patriots running backs, when they are healthy, are definitely startable. So I'm going to take him and add another contending piece to this Mahomes team and hopefully make up some ground if these receivers don't really turn into what I think they will.
Yeah, I like Ramondre's chances at a comeback in 2024. Obviously, 2023 was injury riddled, but when he played, he played like we know Ramondre can. New coaching staff, technically, right? But it's not like they brought in anyone outside, right? The coaches, they know what they have in Ramondre. They know what they don't have in the rest of their running back room. And with how needy they are for nearly every position on that roster, they're not going to address running back in a serious matter, right? Worst case scenario, they bring back Zeke Elliott. And I think when Ramondre's healthy, he easily clears Zeke Elliott at this point in his career. So I really like that pick there at 8-11. I think Ramondre is going to be a steal for a lot of people right now. Last pick of the draft. Kirk Cousins probably should be the play here, right? Because, we know what Kirk Cousins is. Most of the time, he's at least a QB1. Coming off of a big injury and also having uncertainty, right? I think a big part of the appeal with Kirk Cousins is that he does get to play with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson when he gets back. But if a team like Atlanta gets Kirk Cousins, right, and he goes to Bijan, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London, it's not a bad trade-off either. But I'm going to take the guy where I know he's going to be playing next year. I am going to take Matt Stafford. Obviously he's old. I'm going to have him maybe 2 more seasons, maybe 3 if I'm really lucky, but nothing to hate about the guy that gets to throw it to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp on a weekly basis. Plus, I have Kyron Williams, so when he gets that little dump-off pass, I can have a mini stack there as well. Not that that's really the intention, nor do I necessarily care about stacking a quarterback with my running back, but it is what it is. I am going to take Stafford over Kirk Cousins there, and that's going to round us out in round 8. So, Tyler, looking at the board here, man, anything that really jumps off the page for you, like the fact that, Najee, Christian Watson, maybe some of these other guys, Brian Robinson is another example. Anyone that you're genuinely shocked that we didn't pick in the first 8 rounds, or you think it's probably, kind of typical here?
I think it's pretty typical. I mean, I think you could see guys like, Keenan Allen might get drafted earlier.
Hmm.
Who might reach on a guy like Jalen Warren or Jake Ferguson or Tony Pollard even. I think, but this is like kind of the range where I think things are going to happen. I think Najee Harris might even continue to fall like further than this. Like, there's people probably are not going to take Najee over Jalen Warren. There's as I scroll the board, yeah, I mean, I think it's relatively, you know, fine. I mean, I think like once you get here, the next 3 rounds are very flat. So
Hmm.
and I guess in essence, what I'm saying is like if I am looking to make a trade up, like from like the 4th to the 2nd round, like I will let you trade I will give you my 7-1 for your 9-12, your 10-05 or whatever it
Hmm.
is. If I'm looking to move up there, so I think that range is just like incredibly flat and gross.
Yeah, and I mean the 202 is still on the board, right? Going into round 9. Honestly, that might be the biggest surprise for me is that the fact that you can still get pick 14 in the rookie draft in Superflex at this point. I mean, looking at the board, obviously it depends on the situation that you're in, but like unless I'm like immediate contending, yeah, I'll take 202 for Najee Harris. I'll take 202 for Christian Watson. I'll take 202 for just about any of these guys, right? I think my biggest surprise, you've already said his name, Keenan Allen. I think Keenan Allen probably should have gone throughout 8 rounds. I know he's older, but he's a stud. The fact that you can get Keenan Allen potentially 3 rounds after where Mike Evans goes, I think is kind of a steal, right? So if you are a contending team, you're somewhere in like the late 7th, 8th round, even 9th round, obviously, right? I think Keenan Allen's going to be the perfect contending piece there. But aside from him in the 202, there's nothing that's really kind of crazy here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's just a testament to like the way we build teams. Like we just build a direction, like very clearly, because all the picks are consolidated to pretty much 3 teams. There's one team, Team 6, where I took one, and that team is just like really ugly, anyways. So, but all of those picks are consolidated to those 3 teams. So we picked directions and ran with them. I'm not going to argue with them, and I'm not going to try to beat them at that game. I'm not going to try to race them for picks before I'm comfortable with it. And I guess I really do have like some pretty defined lines of how I'm valuing these picks and these names already. When I think about Brian Thomas Jr. and when I think about Jonathan Brooks and all of these guys, especially the higher end ones. I guess I would probably say I'm surprised that there was such a difference between the 103 and then the 4 and the 5, because I think that that's
Mhm.
all one big tier, and I probably wouldn't let those guys just slide by. In reality, if I look back, like if I'm Team 6, I definitely should have taken the 104. I would rather have Joe Burrow the 103 and the 104 than Dak Prescott in that spot. So I think that's kind of what really stands out to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? That's why we do mock draft, right? So that when people are in their real startup, no mock draft should be perfect, right? Mock drafts is the perfect time to kind of do something experimental, right? And kind of see, okay, well, if I press this button, what happens over here? And I think that's one of the reasons why I like that we both took over 6 teams is we drafted each one of them at least somewhat uniquely to the other teams. And I think it's important to kind of look at it from all angles and use those different philosophies to build out those teams and see what the consequences are and kind of see what those teams would potentially look like heading into the 2024 off season. So really interesting stuff here. Honestly, I love doing mock drafts. I don't think we've ever hopped on and just picked up where we left off and really covered the mid rounds. I mean, the mid rounds are we're not going to do a video, guys, of 9 through 12. No one wants to hear us talk about that for an hour, right? But I think there is a lot to be had. There's a lot of substance to be found between rounds 5 and 8. So hopefully, at the very least, you can take at least something from this video.
Yeah, I think the main point is just to, like stick to your direction. Like whatever
Yeah.
makes sense for your roster. I'm not like when it comes to these picks in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, like I'm not going to KTC and like typing in like, oh, who has the higher value that I can like, move for more or what like really whatever. Like I'm making my bets on what I think makes sense for my roster, because it is really kind of tough to make trades after a startup. Like if somebody just took the 201 over Amari Cooper, then like you're not gonna really get them to go, oh, like I'll give you the 201 and whatever the 311 for Amari. Like it's not gonna, you're not gonna really be able to make trades that way in start, like after the startup. So
yeah, no, that's a good call out. But that's going to do it for us here on Goal Line Dynasty. I should have said this at the beginning, but if you didn't watch the first part of this, make sure you go watch the first part. Probably doesn't make sense if you picked up where we left off, but you're all smart people. You can figure it out. Leave a comment below. Let us know. Let us know who your biggest shock was, right? If you agree on Keenan Allen and the 202, you think they should be gone by now. Let us know. But let us know who you personally think should have gone and didn't, or who me or Tyler just really completely reached on. And of course, if you like the video, leave that like. And if you like us, hit that subscribe button so that you can see every single time that we do post, because we will be posting on a weekly basis at this point in the off season, and we're excited to bring some content to everyone. So for myself, for Tyler, and for Goal Line Dynasty, we will see you next time.